Hey everybody, it's Michael from Wahoo Comics, and I just got back the first book that I have ever submitted to CGC. And it's only one, but it's a big one. It's this, Journey into Mystery number 85, which of course contains the first appearance of Loki. Like many of us, I'm a huge fan of him, both in the comics and in the MCU. I just finished watching his Disney Plus series. I thought it was fantastic. If you haven't watched it, check it out. It's really great. And so I am super stoked to add this book to my personal collection. And I'm also thrilled about the grade that it came back as. So when I found the seller who had this, we were looking at it and negotiating and talking about what grade do we think it is. And we guessed that it was going to be about a 4.5. And so he agreed to sell it to me at what he wanted to get for 4.5. And so we made a handshake deal, though, that if it came back higher, I would send him some more money. If it came back lower, then he'd refund me some. And he's going to be thrilled to see this video, just as I was thrilled when I got this book, because it actually came back as a 7.0. And so I am so thrilled at the condition it came back in. I had it pressed in-house at CCS, and they did a fantastic job. This book looks much better than when I sent it off. And again, just stoked. And I actually had it submitted through my LCS because I'd never submitted a book before. And of course, especially it's a big ticket item, I wanted to make sure it was done right. And so when they messaged me to let me know that it had come in, I told them that I was out of town and asked if I could pick it up the following week. And they said, sure, that's fine. And so then I messaged and said, man, I'm really both nervous and excited to find out what grade it came back as. And then they replied by saying, well, we were pleasantly surprised on your behalf about the grade. And so then, of course, I got even more excited and more nervous and was hoping, man, maybe it's a 5.5, or if it's a 6, man, I'm going to be so excited about that. And so I can't explain how happy I was when I saw that it was a 7.0. When I picked it up, it was just me and the workers in the store. And so I was like, yes, all right. And yeah, they were happy for me, of course. And I am so happy, again, to have this. But speaking of Journey into Mystery, there are a few other books that I picked up this week. Of course, I bought this months ago to have it come back. But a seller that I've bought from before, who had a book I was looking for that I'll get to in a minute, but I just want to stay on theme with the Journey into Mystery because I picked up a few books from him, and it included this one, Journey into Mystery 104, obviously at a 5.0. And this wasn't a book I was actively searching for, but it's a book that I knew if I came across at a good price, I would love to pick up at some point. It has this beautiful Thor Jack Kirby cover, and it's the second appearance of the Enchantress. And I would love at some point to get issue 103, which is her first appearance, but I'm really happy to have this one. And it also contains the first appearance of the Twilight Sword, which if any of you have been reading any X-Men stuff over the past, year or two, however long Jonathan Hickman has taken over the X-Men, there recently was a Ten of Swords storyline, which included the Twilight Sword in it. And so the Twilight Sword was the sword that was used to cleave the original island of Kara into Krakoa and Eriko. And so it recently was spotlighted in that storyline. And so that's an added bonus. It's not what brought me to the book, but I thought that was kind of cool. And I thought, well, maybe I'll try to pick up all the debuts of those 10 swords that were important in that book. But regardless, I'm really happy to have it. If you haven't read the Jonathan Hickman X-Men stuff, I highly recommend it. I've loved his stuff. He's such a great world builder, and he's one of my favorite writers out there now. And so speaking of that, another book that I picked up from this seller was East of West, #1 at a 9.8. And so this is a series developed by Jonathan Hickman, published by Image. And another great story that I encourage any of you to read if you haven't. He does another great job of building this world, which is kind of what he does. And it uses a lot of references and imagery from the book of Revelation, which is something I always find interesting and fascinating. I'm still reading through it. I just started volume 3 of this series, and but I'm super excited to have this issue number 1 for my collection at a 9.8. And going back to the X-Men theme, some raw books I picked up from him include a few X-Men keys, like this one, Uncanny X-Men 184. Says I've had a couple copies of these now. This is the first appearance of Forge. And then I also got X-Men 282 and 283, which contains the first cover, cameo, and full appearance of Bishop, who I hope to be in the MCU at some point once they finally get the X-Men in. Of course, if you know the character Bishop, he's a time traveler, and so he would fit really well into some of the multiverse stuff that the MCU is developing now. And so I think there's a chance that he could be one of the earliest X-Men characters that are introduced. Obviously we'll see. And he was never in any of the old Fox X-Men movies, so I'm wondering if Marvel or Disney is going to want to introduce new X-Men or go back to the well and use some of the old X-Men. I'm guessing they'll hold on to like Wolverine, the characters that everybody really demands, but then they'll try to introduce a lot of new characters that haven't been explored before, and I think Bishop is a great candidate for that. So any of those are good to pick up. A couple more books I'll show that I got from this seller include this one, Submariner number 33. Which contains the first appearance of Namora outside of the Golden Age. And as I've talked about in previous videos, there's a lot of belief that Namor is soon going to be in the MCU, maybe in the upcoming Wakanda Forever film, since he has a lot of important ties to the Black Panther universe. If he's introduced, there's a good chance, of course, a lot of his supporting characters will be introduced as well, and so one of those could be Namora. And so I think this is a great book to pick up. And the final book I'll show you is the one that actually brought me to this seller, and one I am super excited again to add to my collection, and it's this one, Silverhawks number 1. If you've been watching my videos, you know that I've been trying to pick up a lot of books that are important to 80s toys and franchises, things that I grew up on. So I've bought a G.I. Joe one recently. Earlier in the year, before I started making videos, I'd got a Thundercats one. And so I'm really excited to add Silverhawks one to that list. I really want a Transformers one. Hopefully someday I can find that at a good price and add it to my collection. So anyway, those are some of the books I picked up this week. I'd love to hear what you've picked up or anything else you're excited about. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, of course, that would be a big help, but leave a comment of, what are some of your great finds, or what are some things that I should be on the lookout for. All right, thanks guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. Talk to you soon.